Mimi Brooks from Logical Design Solutions. Let's hear it for her.
Wow, if I told you that John was from Texas, would you be surprised? He is. He lives in the same town as my kids, and so it's exciting. I'm hoping that I can add some color and maybe some meat to the bone on some of the concepts that, John was bringing up. I'm a management consultant, and my firm works with large global companies on their digital strategies and employee experience design. So we're kind of in the thick of this digital transformation, and happy to share any knowledge that we can. Just real quickly, since John mentioned it, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to attend the roundtable discussion tomorrow, but Brad Ivy from my company, who's here taking these pictures, hello, he's going to be there for me instead. So if you have any of those questions from my talk and you're not able to catch up with me today, then by all means, you can grab Brad and he'll be more than happy to help. So I thought that maybe what I could add as value is to give you a perspective of how organizations are shaping their digital strategies. And if you bear with me, I'm going to go a little quickly through some of the material I have because I've got a lot of examples to share with you at the end. So I'd like to spend as much time as I can showing you some examples of good employee experiences that are strategically aligned to the digital strategies and business models of different organizations. So I'll try to do that. I kind of feel like the left side of my room is far away, so I want to keep looking over there at you guys and make sure that you don't have any questions along the way. Okay, let me make sure I know how to advance my slides and everything from here. There we go. Okay, so as an agenda, I just want to take a few minutes and make sure that we're aligned on concept and language. A lot of people use this language, digital transformation, and, sometimes it gets pretty muddy. So I'm going to try to give you my definition, which frankly is a definition that originates from the World Economic Forum, the WEF. And if you're not familiar with them, you might want to take a look at their website, WEFforum.org. They just have tremendous information out. They're a huge resource. I think you'd find it really interesting. By the way, at our booth out front as well, there's a list of different thought leaders, organizations that we follow in the space. And you can swing by our booth and just pick that up. You'll find a lot of references to the people and organizations I talked about today. I know it's always good to get, good line of sight on networks. I've got to put my glasses on, otherwise I can't see. Okay, so I want to talk about the fourth industrial revolution. I want to talk about challenges that we see that businesses are experiencing. We'll give a little bit of an idea of how we think these new digital organizations are being shaped. We can be a bit theoretical. I'm going to try not to do that, but certainly I'll end on the practical. So let me start, if I can, pull the lens back for my first half and suggest that the fourth industrial revolution is upon us. And I think if we're going to talk about digital transformation, we should first talk about the fourth industrial revolution, because it really explains a lot of this phenomena that we observe as changing organizations. The word disruptive, et cetera, kind of all comes from this concept. And it really is a revolution that observes the phenomena of the fusion of technologies, the technologies that are physical, digital, and biological. And they're combining with human behavior, and it's really changing nearly everything around us. If I can give you a couple of, key language ideas you can take with you, this would be one of them, combinatorial. What makes this revolution so fascinating and so hard to predict is its size, its velocity, and its reach. Altogether, it's really unlike anything we've experienced before, a near perfect storm of science and technology-enabled meta shifts is how I think about it, that are coming together to redraw not only commerce, culture, and society, but our biology, even our ethics. Excuse me. Complicating the change is the idea that digital's pace is exponential, so combinatorial and exponential if I can. Not only does technology combine and amplify each other, Data fuels IoT, which accelerates AI and deep learning, which propels robotics and so on. But the exponential nature causes change to occur at a tremendous pace, with technology progressing following Moore's law and out of sync with linear time. It's the pairing of these two ideas, exponential and combinatorial, that cause the tremendous, incredible disruption that we're experiencing. So when people say disruption, that's really what they're trying to describe. For institutions and organizations, this disruption is hitting at the core of their business strategies, at the viability and relevance of their business models, which we'll talk about in just a moment, risking lack of growth or market share erosion without an appropriate strategic response. I have to stop and check myself because I can be a little weird with these clickers. At this time of fantastical scientific and technological progress and disruption, humans and technology are starting to converge. I think this is really our agenda from a talent management perspective. Now, more than ever before, technology shapes our behaviors, and our behaviors shape the use of technology. It's at this nexus that we find the human-machine relationship redefining, and it's changing work as we know it. The basic direction is already in motion. Anything that can be digitalized or automated will be, and it will happen much faster than you may think. These innovations have a way of moving as tipping points, starting a bit slow and then gaining traction very quickly. They almost seem sudden. Think about solar and wind energy, autonomous vehicles, good example, global cryptocurrency and blockchain, all here to stay, with most of their significant disruptive impact still well ahead of us, but they're moving very quickly now. Importantly, though, anything that can't be digitalized, or perhaps better said is anything that shouldn't be, will be incredibly valuable in the future state. This is essentially our work at LDS, to anticipate the impact of digital on people and to help build the strategies and experiences that enable people to be successful in the future state. Here, too, we find the growing concern on digital ethics. How much automation is too much? When does technology stop fulfilling its purpose of working for people? More specifically, and recently, you see it all over the press, who owns what data? Who benefits? And who decides? Where's the Digital Ethics Council? As the fourth industrial revolution matures, the digital discussion is rightfully shifting. I think it really calls HR people here to participate as it moves from a value-neutral technologies as tools transformation to a human-centric discussion. We're beginning to see the critical short and long-term issues, the awesome opportunities, and the concerning risks that are all in play. Well beyond technology, we're learning this is about the evolution of new business models, the design and value of human work, and the impact of all of those on society and public policy. Digital transformation refers to the use of digital technologies to change the shape of business. It should be one of the reasons we're all here. While digital is often seen through its front-end offerings to consumers and customers and partners, the impact to organizations is complex and it's often not apparent. It's hard to see that transformation inside the enterprise doesn't move the same way that it moves in the consumer marketplace. Nonetheless, businesses are being redefined into digitally centric structures optimized for growth in the new digital economy. Digital transformation is really business transformation. Business strategy faces new options, new markets, new customers, new sources of competitive advantage. New business models emerge with new sources of revenue and changes in value creation. At LDS, we focus on enabling the new operating models. If I can leave you with a good thought, its change occurs at the operating model level, where new organizational capabilities and behaviors are needed to thrive and survive in this new market, and new fundamental redesign of work must occur. Disruptive technology capabilities sit at the bottom of this stack, not the top, the bottom of this stack, and enable new work design, initially social, mobile, analytics, cloud, and now going forward, robotics, AI, machine learning, blockchain, et cetera, et cetera. These new market configurations shift from traditional closed value chains, goods-dominated sequential structures, to service-dominant structures, where that enable service providers to create new value for themselves and to get something out of it in return, such as a fee or information. You might be familiar with business platforms. Can I ask people who are familiar with that term, new digital business platforms? Yes, have you heard it? Okay. This is a type of business model, a new type of, it's not the only digital business model, but it's one. Business platforms are a good example of a new digitally driven value paradigm. They leverage digital technology to provide connectivity, components, and tools to platform players. Digital platforms adopt sophisticated, dynamic business and operating models and have the opportunity to monetize the platform transaction, data, and information. These digital businesses exist in a platform ecosystem. You've probably heard that term. In an increasingly connected world, these ecosystems can be readily expanded at much greater scale and geographic scope and in real time. With that as the world that we're living in, I think now we can ask the question, as organizations begin to move towards their new business models, there are organizational challenges that they're going to need to overcome. Let me give you a couple of the ones that we see. We've started to learn that deploying technology alone doesn't create digital businesses nor drive digital behaviors. Progressive technology itself may be the least important factor in successful digital transformation, in my strong opinion. And successful organizational change is the most important. Let me cover 4 briefly challenges that we see as common. The first challenge is a lack of systems and structures to deal with this type of organizational change. The first is enterprise methodology for thinking digital is missing or insufficient. And I don't mean agile. I don't mean agile methodology. I mean business-centric methodology whose purpose is to guide and envision the future, to define potential future scenarios there, to experiment, to incubate, and then to readily adopt and continually learn as an organizational capability. That methodology, is absent in most companies that we work with. Human excellence structures and systems are needed to engage and align talent, to define new career paradigms. They're brand new paradigms for people, and to help develop new ways of working, collaboration, valuing diversity of ideas, new leadership practices, etc. Finally, I think this is an important point. Digital is very contextual. No 2 strategies should be the same, no 2 business models the same, and no 2 operating models. This is challenging at a time when a one-size-fits-all digital approach to building technology capabilities can dominate decision-making, even in the business agenda. I can't tell you how many HR executives I work with who tell me that they're working on their cloud strategies instead of their business strategies. Leadership readiness and leadership challenges, in our opinion, stem from a sense that there is more time than there really is, to a genuine and significant discomfort with digital technology and its forces. Too much technology and product focus and not enough business envisioning and work design can mislead. Lastly, silos of any kind, especially the leadership kind, are hugely detrimental and are anti-patterns to digital progress. As you know, culture is the glue in these new models, but cultural change is hard and progress can be slow. Critical paradigms such as personal growth and career learning challenge old habits. In many ways, ideas such as time and attention management, learning and relearning paradigms, new measures of performance, and establishing one's personal brand at work all need to be built and rebuilt and then managed by people. This brings to mind Peter Drucker's quote in 2000 when he said, quote, "For the first time, people will have to manage themselves, and society is totally unprepared for it." I love that quote. Finally, a digital-first mindset is a collective organizational way of being, of acting, of prioritizing, of talking about the marketplace, people, and the company's response to it in the era of digitally driven change. A digital-first mindset impacts virtually every element of business activity, from customer centricity in product and service design, to deploying digital capabilities, to drive core processes, to designing digital experiences that attract, develop, and retain talent, to shaping employee expectations, even their behaviors. How can we help to build these new digital organizations? Don't want to overcomplicate this, but if you just kind of read this slide a bit from left to right, you'll see that we see the creation of future organizations as evolving from the planned organization where conscious organizational and work design is conducted to the living organization where the reality of what people actually do occurs. Strategy from the left drives organizational capabilities. In my opinion, the organizational capabilities are the epicenter of these new business models. I'll show you some examples of that in just a second. Organizational capabilities drive operational and business design. This in turn informs work design, and we need a lot of new work design, which is the specific daily activity of people. The execution of work itself occurs in the context of organizational behavior. The actual performance of an organization emerges from that. In other words, a structured, business-driven view of work is needed, along with a specific, human-centered approach to the work itself. Management systems, including human capital systems, are cross-enterprise programs and methodology that provide robust support for operations. New organization capabilities are needed in these new business models. I call them the horizontals, the new horizontals of the business that cross functional and business areas, and they represent the needed collective abilities of the organization. These capabilities are critical in digital businesses as these models inherently rely on the organization's ability to continually reinvent itself. As I like to say, these digital organizations are always living in a future context. What's it going to be like? What are we banking on? What does the future look like? It all lives in the future, which is why these organizational capabilities become so entirely necessary. So, for example, as a capability, anticipating the future is about sensing markets, especially emerging markets, and the ability for an organization to shape the markets themselves. Rapid resource reconfiguration is about business agility, and so on. If we can move the needle in these key areas, essentially building sustainable organizational capabilities that are needed in the future state, we can actually make a difference. It's in fact the focus of much of our work at LDS. A significant challenge for organizations to transform is to make these needed capabilities tangible, specific, and actionable. We talk about these abilities as commitment ideas, but we don't show people how to enact them, how to make them part of their daily lives. And I see that as the biggest gap. We feel it's possible to make digital real through a combination of new work design supported by new ways of working in an actionable culture that's in service to business goals. New ways of working are the one-to-many practices, modes of working, and the working environment itself that you generally find in digital organizations. These are the commonly mentioned traits of digital organizations, and they're directional and useful as a characterization, foundational even to the ideas of cultural change to facilitate digital. However, they alone are insufficient. New work design is needed. I often talk to HR people about what they see their role in building these new digital organizations of the future. Is your role to help build the common organizational capabilities needed everywhere? Is it to partner with your business leaders to design the new work that's needed? I'm not sure what's right for you, but I think it needs to be an active decision. New work design is needed in service to strategic goals and priorities and in alignment with new business models. Specific work is the formal work of people in particular defined situations, elements of work design, as you know, process, roles, responsibilities, work practices, teams, etc. Knowledge, data, tools, and people abilities are defined in specific relationship to the work itself. New work design in human-machine interactions is ever evolving and requires a fluid approach and insight to the long-term ramifications. This ties to the digital ethics point I was making earlier. We've got to be very aware and cautious about how we design new work and the role of humans in new work. We need to see the short-term decisions that we make as having potentially long-term ramifications. We need to make those decisions with eyes wide open. As we said before, culture is the glue in these models, and it establishes the organizational mindset that's needed in digital business models, critically enabling these new ways of working and new work practices. For example, in the digital age, organizations are strategically customer-obsessed and collectively strong at introducing external insights. Operationally, they're comfortable with ambiguity, disruption, and continuous change, and they innovate as a matter of work design. In practice, they're curious and transparent. They seek diversity of ideas, and they actively participate in building the collective knowledge of the organization. Knowledge management is no longer a trap and store idea, it's a behavioral idea. In human development terms, they embrace the idea of the learning worker. Career paths are development-oriented and not defined, and people seek feedback as a continuous idea, and so on. How do we build experiences that enable these new organizational capabilities? The employee experience finds its line of sight in business strategy, its critical context in business and new work design, and its purpose in enabling ways of working. Employee experiences are not built from the ground up using the digital technologies available in the ecosystem. Digital transformation isn't Workday. Digital transformation isn't Cornerstone, et cetera, et cetera. They're built from the top down, anticipating what people need to be successful in the new organization. Employee experience should be expected to lift a lot. Your most important and strategic talent and cultural goals should be the focus of your employee experiences. Stop relegating them to transactions and start looking at them as a change model for, did I do that? For culture. Is that an important plug? Not an important plug. I'm like, whoa, it came unplugged. To grow in the marketplace, we need a growth mindset in the workplace. To be customer-centric in the marketplace, we need to be people-centric in the workplace. To be innovative in the marketplace, we need a culture of innovation in the workplace, and so on. Good experiences model new work practices. They encourage culturally aligned behaviors, and they help people to find their place and purpose in the new digital organization. Experiences are about critical context, personal glue in an otherwise crowded ecosystem of tools. User interfaces are about tools, and they're about transactions and processes and workflow. But user interface design is not user experience design, and the difference is context. Context that people need, not context that the organization thinks they need. The key is to drop experiences just far enough into the future that we pull people to where we want them to go, where the experience enacts, encourages, rehearses what the future looks like, and it demonstrates what good looks like here. In doing so, employee experiences become a channel of change, a catalyst to building organizational capabilities, a personal assistant to people. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Let me show you some examples. You know, there were so many things that I could have brought, so I just tried to bring a wide range of things just to show the concepts that I'm trying to demonstrate here. So let's talk about onboarding. This always interests people. As I like to say, it's like the pain point that everybody loves to hate. Just like, no, I can go into any company and say, what about onboarding? And they're like, oh, I hate onboarding. Okay. Onboarding. So this is from a case study we did on onboarding. You'll see some screen caps and examples. I'll just give you a voiceover to it. Onboarding is about strategic and cultural assimilation first and service delivery second. At least it should be. The employee journey should be a smooth transition from the candidate experience, which begins immediately after offer acceptance. From the beginning, we're all digital all the time, not in business and in people and business scenarios, not in service and transaction scenarios. In other words, onboarding isn't about provisioning computers, getting people signed up for their IDs, getting their benefits registered. I'm not saying we don't want to solve those things, but that shouldn't be our purpose and our focus on a good onboarding experience. Acquainting people to common work practices, methodologies that the organization uses to operate, and business performance goals helps to organizationally align and begin the assimilation process. Getting people oriented and assimilated with their team, their work environment, with their peers from around the organization based on common interest or background or work, help to establish shared behaviors and reinforce culture throughout the process. All the while, they're demonstrating the employer value proposition. Services belong in these onboarding experiences. I'm being kind of a smart aleck about it. Services belong here, but they belong in context to the rest of the onboarding journey. And services, when we do provide them, are personal, helpful, always on, available, omni-channel. This is where you would find a similarity to the consumer space. I want to be able to go to my email, have texts, pick up the phone and call, and all those channels would work in harmony because all the channels understand what I did in the prior channel. So services matter, but services in context to the rest of the experience. I do want to tell you that I worked with a large organization, I won't mention their name, big financial services firm, and they defined their onboarding process as a 2-year cycle, because people would come to that firm to go through the junior analyst training program out of school. And if I punched my clock at this firm for 2 years, I could go anywhere and work. So onboarding to them was to retain the talent after the 2-year mark, not to lose them. So onboarding, when you think about it, is really the very beginning of the career journey. And the more that we can make that a very smooth process, starting from the very beginning, before day one, they're on their career journey, and they see this as a smooth transition into development, training, performance, etc. If you're looking to retain employees, it's a particularly important concept. Okay, so that's one idea. Here's a totally different idea. It doesn't really have too much to do with your space unless you see yourself helping the business redesign work, which I frankly think is a cool idea, but you decide. This is a case study that we did with a client where we were trying to enable frontline workers with new digital tools, imagining new, safer, more fulfilling work for people. So using drones and aerial surveillance, artificial intelligence, and big data, we begin to redefine the role of first responders. drones, instead of people, become the real first responders with an AI engine assessing damage after a major storm, and defining the incidents and the recovery requirements and recommendations based on all of this surveillance. Workers review machine recommendations and data, view aerial photos if needed, and approve next steps. The work is totally changed. The workers themselves and teams, are responsible for claiming tasks based on skills, resources, what equipment they have on their trucks, etc., proximity to damage. So the teams have responsibility, and they pull down the task that they want to manage, and they pass the tasks on if somebody else is better qualified. People manage their own work, and teams collaborate heavily. Project managers now are not on top of people directing them what to do. They're assisting the team. They work for the team and manage with other project managers to ensure that teams are safe, that they're where they should be, that they're accounted for, that we know where everybody is at any given point in time, and they become catalysts to collaboration. First responding people add their own insights. Aerial technology is just that. It's aerial. Once I'm on the ground, I might have a different vantage point of the problem. They can take pictures with their own cell phone, update their pictures and photos, make a decision. The problem is not a tree on a car. The problem is there's a person in the car. The problem is not, so I change the nature of the incident, as a matter of human judgment. The AI engine is continually improved, but human judgment is the critical glue. At no point do people give up control of the overall system to their AI actors or counterparts. PMs then rebalance work and priorities in real time, and learning is the central loop, to everybody becoming smarter in this model. Empowering people, is what the ultimate goal is here. Improving the effectiveness of the team is inherent in the design, and tech stays in service to people. Improvement and iteration is a way of working. Post-incident evaluation improves the process, intelligence, and roles. Everyone gets smarter, work gets safer, response gets faster. Hopefully we have better outcomes for people and communities. But you see my point in terms of new work design. That's what I'm trying to point to, that in new digital organizations, someone's going to have to redesign this work, to make sure that the human-machine relationship is optimized, and to make sure that we make good decisions now about how those decisions or relationships travel in the future state. Just because it's possible doesn't mean we should do it. In other words, said another way. A little bit closer to home, perhaps, the employee journey. So many different slides I could bring you here, so I just wanted to bring you some I thought you might find interesting. The use of immersive experiences, what you might call augmented reality, virtual reality, I call them immersive. Immersive experiences, are becoming commonplace, as you know, in learning scenarios and similar ideas, but over time, they'll play a key role in everyday use. If you've heard the term zero UI as an experience, something like augmented reality is going to be important there. Think about the early renditions of Google Glass now coming into the workforce. And, when I put those on, I really, see an extra layer of imagery, extra experience, in my workday. And no matter where I go and what I do, I can put things in people's attention, information, data, product information. I can put things in people's attention that I might otherwise have not been able to do. So immersive technology is going to move from its early learning and simulation capabilities to being much more of an everyday idea. We're doing some interesting experimental work here in healthcare in their R&D labs. Kind of fun. Fostering a growth mindset, using these experiences to align people to commitment and cultural ideas where they can be actionable. Join an affinity group, take a leadership role in a community activity that the business is sponsoring, find new ways of defining development. experiences that are actionable for people, ways that I can lead, ways I can participate, ways I can make an impact. If you're moving towards being a purpose-driven organization, you've got to figure out how you get the hearts and minds of people, and a lot of this is engaging them to participate. Accountability for careers. It's a shifting mindset in many of the companies that we work with. You know, this whole shifting career paradigm that I was talking about in this example that I'm showing you, this is using mobility, you know, as a career development opportunity, trying to encourage people to think about mobility as a potential leadership or development path, you know, as opposed to thinking about mobility as a relocation service. Do you see what I mean? So a lot of times when we're talking about relo, we talk about it as a service as opposed to talking about mobility as a career opportunity. Again, just some eye candy here so you can see the difference. A curated personal learning experience. You know, this is one of the biggest problems a lot of our clients have. They've got so many learning assets in their LMSs and other systems that they lease and purchase. The problem is people don't know how to manage through all of that. They don't know how to find the context of what would be most useful for them in the context of their interests and career. So we need to think about learning as a curated experience, not as an LMS. Finally, the last example I brought for you was managerial effectiveness. You know, in most of our client organizations, they see a dramatically changing role for managers. In some ways, the managers can be the linchpin of these new strategies. How do we get managers to move into these coaching roles, these mentorship roles? And one of the answers is define and design an experience for managers that looks like that. You know, we give them manager self-service transactions, and we call it enablement. We're going to let them transfer their own people. Oh my God. You know what I mean? Are you sure? You know, there's just nothing about that, you know, that drives better management outcomes. Teach them to be good coaches. Show them what good looks like. This is a perfect application for storytelling, modeling, enacting, so managers see the role that we want them to play. In addition, you know, we've got to be serious about it because I worked with a client that hired us to come in and do that, but you know, they weren't going to really change their performance management process at all, you know, for managers. And we basically said, you know, call us when you feel differently about it. Experiences can't swim against, you know, culture and program philosophy that the business doesn't hold. So you can't put experiences out ahead of the business's philosophy. That doesn't work. Hold on just one second. Yeah, I just want to make sure that you saw this one, modeling a culture of feedback and conversations. We can make that part of an experience design. This I love, you know, and it ties back to this onboarding experience I was talking about before. Let me check my time. You know, onboarding that brings people into their work practices, not onboarding that manages HR processes, for gosh sakes. We have to stop doing that. You know, we're trying to get people acclimated to their work, not to finish our processes for us. You know, that's what we called self-service in HR 10 years ago. You know, and by the way, the business knew it. They were like, thank you so much for transferring that work to us. You know, so, but onboarding and manager experiences that onboard people to the knowledge practices of the organization. This idea of not knowledge as a capture and store idea, but knowledge as a way of working. So being able to model that out for people, it gets right down to methodologies. Some of the onboarding experiences that we do in companies that use lean digital as an example of a way of working, an operational methodology, we build those into the onboarding experiences. How does lean digital work here? What does it mean about the practices and decisions I might make as a manager? So, you know, making methodologies actionable is a really important idea too. Using business intelligence to anticipate opportunities and drive good outcomes. You know, look, business intelligence shouldn't look like a big dashboard that nobody wants to read. You know, and that's a lot of what you're seeing. If we just put more data in front of managers, they'll make better decisions. Managers are like, please don't help me. You know, if we put better information and ideas in front of managers, and we put it in their intention, you know, at the right time based on a combination of their role and their interests, now we start being helpful. We resonate, it's relevant, and you can see that what I'm showing on this mobile device is actually a byproduct of data. turned into a useful statement that says, Sally, you might want to consider whether or not you've got a surge of, a workforce expected in this upcoming seasonal, time, blah, blah, blah. And all that's really coming through data and business intelligence. Demonstrate what good looks like. As I said before, managers really like this. Show me what good leaders in other parts of the business do. Show me what good teams look like. It's not an unwillingness we've found in our research on managers' parts. It's an unknowing idea. What does that look like? So instead of telling me what it is you want me to do, show me how to do that, and help me find other people who have done it well so that I can figure out how to make it work for me. Global teams driven by diversity of people and diversity of thought. It's a big idea. We can create experiences that connect managers and people in the organization, not to people in their organizational structure, but people whose ideas and interests could help me think differently than I think today, overcome my own biases, and factor other thoughts before a good decision is made. So these are all ways that we can use digital technologies to shape the emerging digital organization, to essentially build those key organizational capabilities. And I like to say that I think HR has a vested interest in the horizontals that I'm talking about. If it's not HR building those organizational capabilities that are common across business units and divisions, I don't know who it is. I literally don't know. If it's not you, then who is going to do that? I think it's up to you separately to decide whether you see a role for yourself in the design of new work. And I could understand how that could change from person to person on whether or not you think you'd be doing that, or whether that new work design would happen in the business units or divisions. Up to you based on the size of your organization. Some could argue it's an OD issue. I don't know. I think it's a big challenge. It's unclear to me who's going to be doing the human-machine redesign of work in the future state. And just so you know, there's not too many people that raise their hand when I ask, is it you? So nevertheless, as I said a moment ago at the beginning, this is what the industry reference list looks like, just so you can visually see it if you go to our booth. And I think these are all smart and good people, some of them competitors, some of them collaborators, it doesn't matter. I like people with good ideas, and these are some of the folks I think that you'll find. Also, I just want to point out, because it's not real apparent in our booth, there's these red folders, and inside them you'll find, it's really interesting, you can find it on our website too, but it's an interesting white paper on the year in review in 2017 and the year ahead, our predictions for digital organizations for the year ahead. So if you have just a little bit of room, you want to grab one of those, it's kind of cool. If you don't want to do that, then hop out to our website and you can find it there. Okay, I just want to point out that I am ahead of time to my people who say all the time that I get dragged off the stage. Don't clap, it's not funny. Well, I told John, just come running at me. I will get off if I see you. So, I have just a couple of minutes for questions. I hadn't prepared for that, but if anybody has a question, like to ask me, I'll do my best. Questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am, please. Oh, that's a good question. You know what? The question was whether they get copies of presentations. John, is somebody here from the conference board? Like, what is the normal practice? Do you guys usually post presentations? Maria. Okay. Okay, so you have access. It's a password protected area. If you see Maria, she'll tell you how to do that. If you want to, either you could swing by our booth and give your card to. Could you raise your hand? Just some people there. John, Will, Brad. Am I missing anybody? Ken. So any of those guys can help you. Give them a card, and we'll send you the presentation. Is it the same information as the last? It is the same. Oh, okay. This presentation, do you hear? Like, so funny. This presentation is not in there. She's going to follow up with Maria to make sure. Okay, I was like so marginally useful in that conversation. Sometimes you just have to connect people. Is there other questions that I can answer? Or can I grab one? Yes, please. Miss Wendy, who's somebody I know.
Hello.
Yes. Hello.
Mimi, love to see you. Thank you. I loved everything. Loved the examples,
Thank
especially. Any examples or case studies for when I saw frontline workers? I got excited because I'm in a manufacturing organization in technology. But we have a frontline workforce that when we look at digital manufacturing, we have a workforce that, we're trying to do an employee survey and people still want paper. So any suggestions or case studies on how to help frontline manufacturing workers that are not very technologically savvy get into the future with us?
I think it's such a good question. At LDS, we have a long history of working with manufacturing organizations, everywhere, heavy equipment, transportation, refining, et cetera. And I think that, when that case study that I showed you, Wendy, of the frontline workers, I would not have said, that workforce, when we got involved in that, it was a big telecom as well. We took the same case study, we put it into telecom, and it was humanitarian relief. The first time that was actually the case study that you saw was the humanitarian relief version. I wouldn't say that any of those folks that we designed for, were digitally savvy beyond being consumer users. So everybody is a good consumer user of technology, but they weren't using any of these tools at work. So actually, I think it's a methodology idea, Wendy. I think it's this concept of involving people early. We pulled them in way before we put any pen to paper in designing it. They were part of the input process. They carried as much weight as business stakeholders. We interviewed a wide range of people, folks that were early in the role, people that had been around for a long time, to make sure that we got kind of, voice of the customer. And then, as you've heard a lot in digital, we prototyped slowly early on so that they could see initial ideas. And I have to tell you, we did this lessons learned after that one case study that you saw. And there's a lot of lessons learned. I don't mean to just show you the best part of the case study. The lessons learned were, everything that helped do things like change the role of managers, the project managers. When we initially did that design, we had project managers still sending out the incidents to people that they would be responsible for. It was through that pilot process that we found, we don't really need managers to do that. We can let people do that themselves, let them pull it instead of us pushing it. All of that design came out of the prototype and the iteration process. So I think it's a methodology idea. Involve people early, prototype early, look for the reasons it doesn't work. Look for the reasons it doesn't work. Don't look for all the reasons that you're right. Look for the reasons that you're wrong and iterate. I hope you don't mind me answering the question that way. I think it can be done with methodology. That helps. Okay, one more question. John's coming. He's so big. Was there somebody else? I'm sorry. Ali, please.
Hi. Something that I really liked and I've been thinking a lot about after your presentation was the challenges, the three big things. You said these are the reasons we might not move forward. And you had mentioned that digital might be missing or sufficient, that human excellence systems and structures need to be in place to manage the talent, and that it's very contextual. It could be one size fits all. So do you have any advice on, if you look at a situation that could go digital, it's not, how to kind of go through that process of seeing which one of these challenges is it, and sort of evaluating a situation to really define what needs to be worked on to move forward?
It's a good question. This goes back to what I was saying before. It's really fascinating to me how different every company is in terms of what they're doing with digital. And people in the same industry, there's some similarities, but it's really not the same. And nor should it be, but it's really not the same. So the work that we do, I'm not trying to position our work. I just say it in case it's something that you have a means of doing yourselves. The work that we do in the beginning, we call these digital strategy engagements. And we're not trying to define the business model strategy. We're trying to define the people model of the strategy. And it sorts through a lot of these issues that you're talking about. What are the barriers here? What does leadership think? What are the outcomes that we would need to achieve to get people's attention? What are the pain points? What are the alignment ideas? And I think you've got to know that at the beginning of a project. There needs to be an assessment period that tries to anticipate what's it going to take to move this organization forward, to overcome some of these pain points that I'm talking about. Like I don't have an answer for it, as opposed to a process that says, what is it? What are the obstacles? And what's the line of sight? I will tell you that sponsorship at an executive level is critical. John's like, get off the stage. Sponsorship at an executive level is critical, for any of these projects to move forward. So maybe I can talk to you more offline too. I'm going to go so that I can get the next speaker up. Thank you very much. Have a good conference.